Whether you love them or hate them, more people have iPhones than you can imagine. Some people even play games on them. Now, we found out during the presentation that it is actually the most popular gaming platform out there, but take that with a small grain of salt because it's not really a hardcore gaming platform. That being said, here is everything gamers need to know about the iPhone 7. So the first thing about iPhone 7 and iPhone 7 Plus that is obvious that we have to talk about that is relevant to gamers is Nintendo's partnership with Apple. There's been a couple of games, some you might have heard of, like Pokémon Go, but there hasn't been any Mario up until now. And this may be a somewhat controversial title, but Mario's coming to the iPhone in a game called Super Mario Run. Now, it will most likely be out on the Android as well, but it is an exclusive for now on iOS. And as you might suspect from the title, it is a runner. And what does that mean? That means it is kind of a platform game, but not entirely a platform game. I initially wasn't too happy to find out about this, but as they played more footage of it, I actually kind of think this might look good. I'm not a big fan of runners because I really like the idea that you actually have to control yourself in a platformer and time things, but here is the thing that I like about Mario Run. Obviously, the maps are a little bit higher quality than a lot of endless runner type games on account they're made by the Mario people who, let's face it, are good at making levels, period. But on top of that, they've created things that still add that element of timing in. That's not just jump at the right time, but rather run at the right time. Before some areas, there's pause blocks, and I like that. I haven't really seen that in too many runners thus far, and it allows for those bridges with fireballs coming up in sequence that, frankly, I enjoy those sequences. That's something that I remember from the original Mario. There's also an asynchronous player versus player mode called Battle Mode, which essentially is a race against the ghost of your friend to beat a high score. The thing that makes me particularly happy about Super Mario Run is that the game comes at a set price. It is not a free-to-play game. It is not a fee-to-play game. You'll buy the game, and you'll have the game. Now, I'm just gonna say it, more games need to go like that, whether it's mobile or console, period. Microtransactions are not something I'm a fan of. They said it's going to release before holiday 2016. They did not give a date, but maybe a hint is that they are going to be having Mario stickers for iMessage, so it's possible that it may launch at the same time iOS 10 launches, but we don't know for certain. Now, you remember last month when Pokémon Go hit and hit hard despite some problems. They've done some interesting things with the Apple Watch regarding Pokémon Go. I don't know if they're for everyone, but we'll see. It might end up being a good reason to own an Apple Watch, and it might not. We'll find out. The main screen on the Apple Watch will show you the current level you're at and how much XP you need to get to the next one. It'll show you things like Pokémon that are nearby. It'll let you know when you've encountered Pokémon and need to take your phone out and capture them. It'll also buzz when you're near your Pokéstops. You don't even have to get your phone to collect the items from the Pokéstop, and it records steps for egg hatching, so you don't have to have your phone open in order to do that. What's funny is how quickly Nintendo has sort of taken over the App Store, with Pokémon Go being probably the most popular game that's ever happened on there, and a Mario game that has absolutely blown up all of my dashboards everywhere. I'm assuming that's going to be a huge game as well. Considering there's been over 140 billion apps downloaded on iPhone and iPad, that's pretty impressive. But also, bear in mind, gaming is the biggest category on the App Store, so think about how big it is that Nintendo has taken these areas kind of over. It goes to show you what a game maker can do on the iPhone, and whether or not you're really a huge fan of it, it's fairly impressive to me. I have decently high hopes for Nintendo on mobile platforms, and I think iPhone is showing us that they are actually taking it fairly seriously. Speaking of the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus, let's talk a bit about the phone itself. Apple made a big deal about the refined design, and I mean a big deal, probably bigger than they needed to, but it is a slick looking phone. They showed off both a high gloss and a matte black finish, and they both are actually really cool looking. The home button, the one button on the phone, has been given even more functionality by making it both force sensitive now and giving it a new taptic engine, which allows you to feel things a little bit more accurately. These things can be programmed by third-party apps as well, so home might mean something else in whatever app you're in. The new iPhones are both water and dust resistant and have a hell of a camera in them. The iPhone 7 has a 12 megapixel camera on the back of it, and the iPhone 7 Plus has two, one with a wide-angle lens and one with a telephoto. They now have a 10x zoom, which thanks to the second camera on the 7 Plus can give you a much more improved zooming mechanism that utilizes both hardware and software. Photos will also have a simulated depth of field effect that is really high quality and utilizes both of the cameras in order to give you a quote-unquote depth of field mapped image that then simulates a blur on the background. The result is actually really good, and if it lives up to the promises that they've made, it's really going to make it seem unnecessary to have very high quality cameras for most regular consumers, because they'll already have one in their phone. Performance-wise, the new phone has a brand new A10 Fusion chip. It's a 64-bit quad-core processor that has two high-performance cores that are 40% faster than the A9 and two high-efficiency cores that save battery life. Supposedly, the graphics performance is 50% faster than an A9, which is pretty significant because an A9 is not something to mess with. The graphics on iPhone games are already pretty darn good. It's such a powerful processor you can actually edit raw photos, as in the raw file format photo, in real time. They also said the A10 Fusion will enable quote-unquote console-level gaming, but we hear that every single year. And when they finally say on par with the new Xbox, or on the same level as the new PlayStation, that's when I'll believe it. But frankly, when you say console level, you could mean previous generation, you could mean 2 generations ago. I'm not saying the games don't look great, they do look great, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment, but it's not a new claim, and I really didn't want to let that hang there. Something I think is particularly cool are the new AirPod headphones. Like, they're not going to be for everybody, and they're not the coolest thing that's ever happened, but it is neat. For gamers, I imagine it is going to actually create some situations that might be interesting. I'm not going to speculate as to those, but I am going to tell you, it syncs with whatever device you're using, whether it be the iPhone or the iWatch. The batteries last 5 hours, chargers built right into the case, which is also battery powered itself, so let's say you want to charge them without plugging the charger into the wall. If the charger is charged, you can charge them. But it is actually useful considering not everybody is going to want to plug in wireless headphones after using them. They might be out, you know? You could probably put them into your pocket and charge them for a while and then use them again. It's really convenient, actually, especially if you like sound when you're playing games. Like, I like to have headphones in when I'm playing Downwell because I love the music and I love the sound effects. I do rather like the idea of not having wires, making it slightly more difficult to do that. The other thing that's cool is they themselves are touch sensitive, meaning you'll be able to activate Siri with a double tap to your headphones if you use Siri, and I'm sure that there's going to be other uses as well. And we talked a little bit about the performance as far as what kind of machinery we've got inside this thing, but let's talk a little bit about application. They brought out a developer who is working on a Wizard of Oz game that was actually able to show us some very interesting things. For one, the game showed 400 flying monkeys rendered on screen in real time, which is fairly impressive if you think about it. They were not low poly models, they looked pretty decent, and it did not take a hit to the frame rate whatsoever. They talked a little bit about the wide color display as well, which supposedly has a much more dynamic range regarding colors, but it's very hard to see that on a video being played over all of our regular screens. So I'm fairly interested to get one in my hands to see just how much of a difference that makes. The haptic feedback is supposedly going to work a lot better, giving you more of a rumble whenever there are big hits feel, like you often do with more mainstream game consoles and controllers. And supposedly the new stereo speakers are going to absolutely blow your mind. Again, really hard to tell you exactly how well it's going to work. We obviously haven't had one in our hands. We have no ability to really make any assertions other than they say it's a lot better. So once we get a hold of one, we'll definitely tell you more about it. Now, in all honesty, we do have to talk about how good that game actually does look. For a phone game, it's superb. The A7 Fusion chip is really actually, at least on some level, what they're promising it to be. Obviously, we need to have one in our hands to tell you for certain, but it looks good. I have an optimistic outlook on gaming on the iPhone 7. Both the iPhone 7 and the 7 Plus are going to start at 32 gigabytes, which is good on account previous versions have started at 16, and frankly, if you're a gamer, even an iPhone gamer, you know that that's almost no space whatsoever. The pretty sweet wireless AirPod headphones are going to ship in late October with a price of $159, which you're going to have to make a decision whether or not that's worth it for you. It may not be, but it may be. It really depends on what you use the headphones for. iOS 10 is going to come September 13th, so not very long from today, and pre-orders for the new iPhone start on the 9th. It will begin shipping the 16th. But how about you? Are you interested in this version of the iPhone? Have they finally made the sales pitch you need to hear? Or have you been playing games on the iPhone for a long time now? And for that matter, the people who haven't, are you feeling more steadfast than ever? Whatever your opinion, we want to hear it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please click like. We upload brand new videos every single day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. We thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter @FalconTheHero, and we will see you next time right here on Gameranx.